with news you can use. Today's topic, canary in the mine shaft. You guys have probably heard that term forever. You may or may not know what it means. Let me give you a little background on that. Years ago, 150, 200 years ago, when they did a lot of digging of mine, today in the United States, we primarily just dig coal out of the ground using manpower. But back then, everything was dug out of the ground using manpower. And one of the dangers of underground digging is methane gas. You would never know it. It's odorless, colorless, but it'll kill you just like that. And miners were aware of this, and they, after a number of deaths, they figured out a solution, and they put a canary bird, canaries that they had taught to talk all the time and make sounds or sing all the time. They would put a canary in a cage in various areas of the mine shaft. And if all of a sudden you heard the canaries go silent, because they would never stop talking or singing or whatever, if you heard them go silent, you were to run to the nearest exit, because that meant methane was in there and killed the birds. They were more sensitive to methane than people were. So typically what that's meant in modern day terms is the first thing that you notice in something that could be disastrous down the road. So we've got right now, it was as of last night, I noticed the first piece of the canary in the mine shaft for not only recession, but a big breakdown in the housing industry. And it was a small article that was written in a kind of an odd business magazine. And it dealt with the fact that today there are 20 million households in the US that are behind multiple months on their utility bills. Now, there's always these precursors to people losing their house. Of course, recessions cause people to stop making payments. Financial crisis and things like COVID caused people to not be able to make payments because they didn't have jobs. But one of the early tell signs has been for a number of years for people who fall behind in their payments of utilities. If you can't make your utility bill, pay your electric, pay your gas, that's usually an early warning sign that you're going to stop making, if you haven't already, stop making your house payments. And we believe that this is a good indicator of what's to happen over the next couple of years. You're not going to see the brunt of this probably till this time next year, but it is obviously a leading wave indicator of a wave of foreclosures. 20 million is an all-time record. The most that they had a couple of months into COVID was like 6 million people behind on their payments. Today, there's 20 million. There's no specific reason other than the general economy, the fact that there's been a lot of people, who haven't had jobs or have had unemployment or have had COVID relief payments, and that's been their only source of income. So we believe that this news as of last night, 20 million households behind. Now, a number of them will be rental households. But once again, that's a downstream effect of an upstream problem. In other words, the renter doesn't make the payments to the landlord, and then the landlord can't make the payments to the bank. And eventually these things go into foreclosure and everybody loses, or the landlord has to sell out. And we know a lot of you, including ourselves, are getting lots of calls from landlords who are having problems making their payments or on the verge of having problems making their payments. And at least they're doing some preemptive stuff to be able to get out from underneath that. And so this is going to be a great opportunity for everybody in this business out there. Foreclosures, obviously, but other things too, down the road. Just, I can't afford it type things. You're going to have a lot of people who've been making payments or keep making payments, but will no longer be able to, or it will be so tight that they're willing to walk away from any and all equity. So rents, although they are dropping and they are not rising in some areas as fast as they were, will eventually drop. But there's still a big spread in most rental properties, and there is still a lot of equity in most properties out there. So it is a great time to be able to get properties subject to, with seller finance carryback on land contracts, installment land sale agreements, all these kinds of things, all these functions that deal with a seller who's got the ability or need to be able to finance your purchase. So look for more of this seller finance based transactions, whether it's a subject to or one of these other types of things, lease options, so on and so forth. It's going to be, and of course we'll keep you up to speed as we see more news, but this is the canary in the mine shaft, I believe. Haven't seen it for years. I did see a period of 2000, I think it was 7 or so, when people started falling behind in utility payments. And that led, of course, that was a precursor to the Great Recession, as they called it now, which was the subprime housing crisis. Remember, I believe, as we've talked on prior episodes, I believe they're going to blame this at the feet, or they're going to lay the blame for this at the feet of investors. This is going to be an investor-led financial crisis, recession, whatever. I think investors are going to be to blame, but there's some good workarounds, and I think there's ways to flip that around to be able to get more deals down the road. So we'll talk about that in future episodes. I'm going to talk about something else on Thursday night, dealing with a savings rate and how I think this is going to stifle the Fed and cause the Fed to have bigger problems, which will in turn cause us more problems. So sorry, it's all bad news. One more piece of bad news, I'm going to get to something fun and interesting. Redfin announced yesterday that the average sale price for all sales during the month, this is in the United States, all sales during the month of June was $392,000, almost $400,000. And that was the average, the median sale price for every house. Last month, the month of October, it was $359,000. So a drop of $33,000, 10% basically. It comes out to about 9% across the board in the United States. You want to know how the market has dropped? Across the board, every house in America, 9% from June, July, August, September, October. So whatever that is, 5 months or so, 9% drop. Now there are areas like here in California, where we've had 20% drops. We've had a 4% drop every month for 5 months in a row. There are some areas where there's been no drop yet, and it's all over the board. We've talked about that in past episodes as well. You can go back and take a look at some of that, and we'll keep you guys up to date again on that. Some areas are looking good, most areas are looking bad, but generally across the U.S., 9-10% drops so far. Expect that to double or triple by this time next year. All right, that's the bad news. Now, the fun news today actually is going to put a picture up of a guy that I want to tell you a little bit about. This is something unique, and it's something you guys might all want to look at. This is a gentleman he's a billionaire, multi-billionaire. His name is Li Jiquan. He's from China. He was a taxi driver, and he earned his money day trading real estate and stocks, and he day traded pharmaceuticals. I'm not sure exactly how you do that, but anyway, he did that while he was driving a taxi. He became a billionaire, made some great investments, so on and so forth, became a billionaire. Well, he is addicted to art collections. He actually owns a number of high-end art studios in China and some other places, and so he goes around the world now, and he doesn't look very old. He looks like a kind of a young guy, actually. But he spends his time going around the world collecting priceless works of art. He's figured out a hack on how to do this, and it's brilliant. Maybe this is something you guys ought to look at. He has what's called a black card with American Express, which basically has unlimited dollar amounts, right? He's proved that he's worth billions. They'll let him charge anything. So he goes around the world and he buys priceless works of art using his Amex card. This article, it was in a magazine the other day that I looked at, talked about a purchase he just made for $46 million. He's made a total this year of $170 million of purchases using his Amex card. Now, why would you do that? Now, in the case of this last one for $46 million, he had to run the card 31 times and sign 31 receipts. Seems like a lot of work, right? You can just wire transfer $46 million. But the reason he did that is this guy is the largest all-time point holder with American Express. He has tens of millions of points and miles with Amex. He's got so many points that he and his entire family have lifetime free flights and free luxury hotel rooms any place in the world, anytime they want. He's got that many points, he cannot possibly use them. So if you guys want to do a little hack here and you got a great Amex card, buy your next house on American Express. If you got an unlimited deal, or do your rehab on Amex, get those points and then spend the rest of your time after you make that money taking luxurious vacations all around the world and enjoy yourself. That's a great hack, and I would use it anytime you can, all right? It's always good to stop on some good news, so that will be it today for News You Can Use.